What's good, y'all? Anderson Emerald here, and we got to talk about Jamaica. Jamaica is unfortunately losing some of its top athletes to the country of Turkey. We are seeing many Jamaican athletes who medaled at the Olympic Games last year switching their allegiance to represent the country of Turkey in the future. And this is very interesting. So I'm going to dive into some of the facts and some of the information, and then of course speak to the reasons as to why this is occurring, and even how one of our recent kind of legends in Jamaica actually did kind of hint at this, and now we're seeing these things coming into fruition.
And that's the irony of it. The gold medal that they were sitting down waiting for did not come from the track. It came from the field events, and those are the events that they neglect so much in Jamaica. And most of the medals that we have gotten so far at these games comes from the field events, and we're the most marginalized groups within Jamaica track and field, and it's very frustrating, and it's time for them to stop and really reflect on what they're doing to us as athletes.
First, it started to come out that some Turkey was kind of poaching Jamaican athletes. I'll talk about the details in a second. But we, of course, did see that Roje Stona as well as Roje Campbell, they confirmed today, this is, of course, June 19th, that they're switching allegiance to Turkey. And here it says Olympic medalists Roje Stona as well as Roje Campbell are reported to have switched allegiances to Turkey after being lured by attractive financial remunerations. Roje Stona, who failed in his attempt to transition to play in the National Football League, broke the Olympic Games men's discus throw record with a 70-meter throw in Paris last year, while Campbell won the bronze medal in the men's shot put. So these were just the first two quote-unquote casualties for Jamaica in, at the top of the day. But in the few moments after that, we actually found out that it was not just them. It actually turned out to also be Wayne Pinnock and Jaydon Hibbert. This was huge. Now, we're going to dive into more details, but Wayne Pinnock, long jumper, Jaydon Hibbert, they also are going to be representing Turkey. So, Jamaican Gleaner continues, says, quote, Kingston, Jamaica, fresh off the heels of the news that Olympic Games medalist Roje Stona, as well as Roje Campbell, has switched allegiances from Jamaica to Turkey, the local track and field fraternity has been rocked by reports that horizontal jumpers Wayne Pinnock and Jaydon Hibbert have also taken flight to the European country. This is big. This is big. Now, who knows what also may be going down in the future. There's some, word that other athletes may join them as well. Shout out to Trish from Jamaica. She actually noted in a tweet that Turkey, Bahrain, and the Turks, there are known countries currently in dialogue with Jamaican athletes and clubs regarding their talent acquisition. But she actually said, quote, several athletes have chosen to wait until after trials to see if they earn a spot before making any decisions about transferring or about switching allegiance. That means that after the Jamaican trials coming up just next weekend, we may see a few more athletes decide to switch over to Turkey, to Bahrain, to wherever. This may just be the tip of the iceberg, right? But just to start off with these four, what deal were they being offered by Turkey? So in Sportsmax, they were originally reporting this, might have been some other places as well. But they did say Turkey's secret bid to recruit elite Jamaican athletes ahead of LA 2028. And in the article, it says, quote, according to impeccable sources, the move orchestrated by a well-known international sports agent reportedly includes not only an upfront payment of at least US $500,000 per athlete, but also promises of substantial monthly stipends and performance bonuses reaching into the hundreds of thousands for medals earned at global competitions. So these were the incentives that these athletes were given, and the offer that they were given to come represent Turkey, to leave Jamaica, no longer represent their country, their birth country on the global stage, and instead represent a country in Europe, right? Turkey, of course, is one of the more prominent nations, when we're talking about Europe, and of course straddles Europe and Asia. The other thing here is the financial incentives, where Turkey at the Olympic Games, they have a massive payout if you win a medal at the Olympics. I was looking this up. I saw this on Twitter where it says Turkey's payout for Olympic gold medals. It's at $531,000 for Turkey if you win a gold medal, $300,000 if you win a silver, $150,000 if you win a bronze. I wanted to cross-check this to make sure the source is correct. Here, this is just Wikipedia, so this does hold up. But I went a little bit further. I found on, I think, Turkey Today, and they also do kind of quote a similar amount. So approximately $505,000 for gold medalists. So something in that realm. So essentially, not only are you getting this $500,000 from Turkey to just come represent them and compete along with those incentives, performance bonuses, et cetera, but if you make it to an Olympic Games and actually win a medal, which many of these Jamaican athletes already have, then they'll actually get a bigger payout. You're talking about $1 million $1 million, $500,000 up front, and then $500,000 if you win a gold medal. Why wouldn't someone like Roje Stona actually take that? Not have to deal with the Jamaican Federation. Like, these are the decisions that athletes are actually making. So this is a big blow for Jamaica because these athletes are very, very, very prominent. As I said, Roje Stona, Wayne Pinnock, Roje Campbell, Jaydon Hibbert. Just look at what we saw from Jamaica at the Olympic Games last year. Look at the medalists. You saw Jamaica win a total of 6 medals. 6 medals across the entire Olympic Games, and they only came from track and field. Guess who were their medalists? Roje Stona, of course, the Olympic gold medalist in that discus throw. First time ever for Jamaica. You also had Shanika Ricketts, Olympic silver medalist in the triple jump. She's not transferring, as we know now, right? Kashane Thompson, silver medalist in the 100. Wayne Pinnock, he's of course on his way out. Olympic silver medalist in that long jump. Roje Campbell, bronze medalist in the shot put. Rashid Broadbell, bronze medalist in the 110 hurdles. But after you get to all these medalists, of course you have a ton of athletes who competed at the Olympics, but the next highest finisher in any event at the Olympic Games, guess who it was? Jaydon Hibbert, 4th place in the triple jump at those Olympic Games. He had the next highest finish of any Jamaican athlete who did not win an actual medal, right? This is a massive blow for Jamaica because these athletes are literally the most successful athletes coming off the Olympic Games last year. Y'all all remember when Jamaica was so disappointed that athletes like, Elaine Thompson-Herah with Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, Sharika Jackson, right? They all, either Elaine didn't qualify, Shelly unfortunately pulled out, as well as Sharika unfortunately pulled out, due to injury and things like that. People were devastated because that broke a streak, at least on the women's side, of Jamaican sprinting winning a medal in the 100 and the 200 dating back to literally the 1980s. I think in the 200, the last time they didn't medal at the Olympic Games was 1976, if I'm correct, right? Someone could fact check me on that. But, we saw Merlene Ottey in 1980. She got a medal in the 200, that bronze medal. So that was a big blow. And the field events really carried Jamaica on the podium at these Olympic Games. And again, let me be clear. This is not just Jamaica athletics. This is Jamaica in all sports, not just track and field. Only 6 medals at the Olympic Games, only coming from track and field. So this is a massive blow to lose all these athletes moving over to Turkey. But before we get into the details of why they are actually transferring, what are the repercussions for them moving to represent Turkey? Now, World Athletics has these things called a transfer of allegiance rule, where athletes have to follow certain protocol to be able to represent different countries on the world stage if they're transferring allegiance. So if you've represented one country at a certain point at the Olympic Games, the World Championships, or whatever it may be, you then have to wait a little bit of time before you can represent a different country if you're choosing to transfer allegiance. So in their rules, their transfer of allegiance rules, which have been updated as of 2022, they actually lay this out very specifically. I'm going to go straight to the bottom. It says here, quote, a competitor who has represented one country in the Olympic Games, in continental or regional games, or in world or regional championships recognized by the relevant IF, which is International Federation, and who has changed his nationality or acquired a new nationality may participate in the Olympic Games to represent his new country, provided that at least 3 years have passed since the competitor last represented his former country. At least 3 years have passed since the competitor last represented his former country. Continue, says this period may be reduced or even canceled with the agreement of the NOCs, the National Olympic Committee, and IF, International Federation, concerned by the IOC Executive Board, which takes into account the circumstances of each case. Now, let's be clear. They're not taking into consideration these circumstances. These athletes are getting paid, right? They're getting paid, $500,000 by Turkey to simply, change their allegiance, right? Like, this isn't some extenuating circumstances where, I don't know, they can't live in their country anymore, all kinds of this ain't happening. So essentially, these athletes are going to have to wait 3 years. So what does it mean for these athletes? Well, take a look at Roje Stona as well as Roje Campbell, Jaydon Hibbert. They competed at the Olympic Games for Jamaica. That's the last time they represented Jamaica on the global stage, Worlds, Olympics, whatever it may be. They are going to have the opportunity to compete in 2027 because we're talking about 3 years. So August of 2027, which means they'll be eligible to represent Turkey at the Beijing World Championships in September of that year, right? As long as they get qualifying marks, they can still compete on the circuit. They just can't represent any nation in this time period until August of 2027. Now, you do have a different situation with Wayne Pinnock, who actually represented Jamaica at the 2025 World Indoor Championships. He actually won won a silver medal at these World Indoor Champs. I thought he was one of the top competitors for a gold medal later on this year. But if he's transferring allegiance, as it's been reported, that means that he is now going to have to wait until March of 2028. Because remember, it's 3 years. So he competed March 2025. Now he'll have to wait until March of 2028. So this really does maybe not necessarily set these athletes back, because most of them are still relatively young, right? Jaydon Hibbert, he's 20 years old. Wayne Pinnock, he's 24. Roje Stona, he's 26. So they're still relatively young, but they have to wait until 2027 and then 2028 for Wayne Pinnock to be able to actually represent Turkey on the global stage. Now, let's dive into some of the details as to why they are actually transferring. And this is unfortunately going to be many things that you already know, that we've been hearing from athletes year after year, especially when talking about Jamaican athletes in the field events, what carried Jamaica at the Olympic Games last year. Right, issues with the JAAA. This has been very open for many, many years, where unfortunately the JAAA just doesn't seem to provide as much support for athletes, specifically field event athletes, whether it's support, whether it's communication, different things that are probably logistically important for these different athletes, right? Things outside of working with their sponsor or working with their agent, just support from their national federation. And especially, these athletes who are in the field events. I think one of the biggest things was Daniel Thomas-Dodd at the Olympic Games last year when she competed in the shot put. She was very vocal about the lack of support, especially as it relates to her and her coach and like all that support that the JAAA just did not provide. Here's, of course, that clip that went viral, I think, last year.
It's very frustrating dealing with JAAA and J3s because these people don't care about field events in Jamaica. And if they did, they would make sure that we have everything we need to make us comfortable, because my coach is not just a part of my training process. He's a very crucial part of my warm-up and getting ready for preparations, and I didn't have him for 2.5 weeks. 2.5 weeks. It's very frustrating because this is definitely something that I'm more than capable of obtaining. And that's the irony of it. The gold medal that they were sitting down waiting for did not come from the track. It came from the field events. And those are the events that they neglect so much in Jamaica. And most of the medals that we have gotten so far at these games comes from the field events. And we're the most marginalized groups within Jamaica track and field, and it's very frustrating, and it's time for them to stop and really reflect on what they're doing to us as athletes.
So that's, of course, one aspect, just that support that athletes, specifically in the field events, just don't seem to be getting from Jamaican athletics, from the JAAA. And this is not anything new. On top of that, you have to think about things like financial sustainability, especially a field event athlete. Again, in track and field as a whole, we all know that track athletes, especially just a regular track athlete, let alone a field event athlete, you're not getting paid a significant amount of money to compete on the global stage year in, year out. And especially many of these athletes from all around the world, but then of course when you talk about some athletes from Jamaica, they're not coming from well-off families, they're not coming from well-off backgrounds or anything like that. They're coming, they just happen to have tons of talent. They happen to make it big, whether it's at champs or after high school, and then they got into the pro ranks or the NCAA or whatever it may be, and they became one of the talented athletes that managed to get a contract potentially. Maybe they didn't, but these athletes, when they get to that point, they're not making a ton of money. They're not a Usain Bolt. They're not a Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price. Actually, I'm gonna talk about another athlete in a second, but most athletes who are competing on the global stage simply are not making enough money to truly sustain themselves long-term in track and field. This is a big, big issue that has been going on for years. And then, of course, when you're talking about lack of support from the JAAA, that's just gonna be expounded tenfold. Now, the other thing that's really important is we just saw this spoken about by Asafa Powell. Literally earlier this year, Asafa Powell got a lot of flack and a lot of hate for saying that he might not even have his kids actually represent Jamaica on the global stage. I'm gonna report here from Sportsmax, and Asafa Powell here says, or at least the article says, my kids won't run from Jamaica if, and then it can kind of does continue on. And in this article, Asafa Powell says, quote, honestly guys, if the support system doesn't change, my kids not running for Jamaica, Powell said bluntly. He continues, says, I'm sorry to say that, but it's just facts. My wife is Canadian and Ghanaian, so there are options, he added. Asafa Powell has seen the experiences and has seen the struggles with the JAAA. He's seen all the things that the lack of support that might have been not provided for athletes, like all those different aspects that occurred during his time as an athlete back in the early 2000s. Let's not forget, Asafa Powell is almost a trailblazer for athletes who chose to not go into the NCAA, remain at home, and become these legendary sprinters, right? Asafa Powell is one of the legends in the sport of track and field. But it's actually noted in this article that back in 2006, early in his career, right? I think he went pro in 2002 or 2003 or so, but we're talking about 2006. So we're not talking about the Asafa Powell that we truly know today. He had broken the world record once in 2005, once again in 2006, and then twice in 2007. So he is kind of rising, but he doesn't have any medals yet. He competed at the Worlds in 2003, the Olympics in 2004. So, he's kind of like building. But here he does say, or the article says, he went a step further to reveal that back in 2006, early in his career, he was offered millions of US dollars to compete for another country, a deal he turned down out of national pride and hope for a better future with Jamaica. Asafa says, quote, "I didn't know what the future holds, but if I knew then what I know now, I would have taken up that opportunity." That's crazy. And now we're actually seeing it come into fruition with high profile names. Now, I'll talk about some athletes that have switched allegiance in the past, but Asafa Powell was a high profile name. He is, to me, one of the greatest athletes in the history of track and field, even despite, him not having golds and things like that. But you can't take away his talent. You can't take away, what he's done for the sport. But the fact that we're now seeing it here with someone like Wayne Pinnock. Wayne Pinnock won a silver medal at the World Championships in 2003, a silver medal at the Olympic Games last year, and a silver medal at the World Indoor Championships this year. He is seeing extreme amounts of success over the past couple years, and he's now even choosing to actually transfer over to Turkey. This is a big loss for Jamaica, but has this actually occurred in the past? Well, it has actually occurred for Jamaica on a couple different ways. So in previous years, you did see Jax Harvey. He actually switched to Turkey a few years back. You had Kamarly Brown, you had Andrew Fisher, and then you also had Brandon Simpson. They transferred to represent Bahrain. So that's a couple places that athletes have gone. But you also, probably the most notable name was Merlene Ottey. Back in 2002, she actually transferred from Jamaica over to Slovenia to represent them on the global stage. But the difference here is that Merlene Ottey, and when I say that she was probably the most notable is because we've known her up at that point as, you can argue as probably the most successful Jamaican athlete up to that point, considering all her Olympic medals, her world championship medals, all the records she had, et cetera, et cetera. But the difference there is she essentially already had her career. In 2002, Merlene Ottey was 42 years old. So this is already way past. And after that, she actually didn't win any medals. Her last medal was at the 2000 Olympic Games when she ran on the 4x1 and also got a medal in the 100 meters. But this is very different because Jaydon Hibbert, again, he's only 20 years old. By the time we get to 2027, Jaydon Hibbert is only going to be 22. Wayne Pinnock, he's only going to be 27. Roje Stona, he's only going to be 28. So even someone like Campbell, he's going to be 31 years old. So in the world of track and field as it is now, that's not really that old. So they are still going to have long, many of them, Jaydon Hibbert's going to have a long career after that. So this is a big loss for Jamaica. Very, very big loss for Jamaica. But what does this actually mean kind of going forward? And then also what might happen next or what needs to happen next? First thing, this is an immediate loss this year and then also in the future. Like I said, someone like Wayne Pinnock has been very consistent. I've been speaking about in recent videos how he is very likely gunning for the gold medal at the World Championships this year. He does not want to keep losing silver, but now he's made the decision that, listen, even if I could get a gold medal at the end of this year, it's not even worth it. The money, the long-term financial sustainability, right? Not having to deal with the JAAA, that's more worth it, some years down the line. Jaydon Hibbert, he hasn't even gotten a medal yet, but he has been seen as one of the top prospects for Jamaica, considering his youth, considering his talent, and now he's moving off. So he's not going to be a medal threat, even after getting 4th place at the Olympics, despite injury. Roje Stona, right? He just got the gold medal in the discus throw, breaking the Olympic record. He, of course, is now, going to be a loss. Roje Campbell just got a medal in the shot put. He, of course, is going to be a loss. This is an immediate loss for this year and for future years. As I said, you're losing a lot of current talent, but then also think about the long-term development and sustainability. Some of the younger athletes, if they're seeing some of the top athletes leave the country to go make a lot of money in some other country, just get the opportunity to represent them, why would they look to come represent Jamaica? They could probably just get really good at home, compete well at champs, blow up there, get a pro contract or do whatever, or just sign, with Turkey, with Bahrain, with the UAE, or with whoever, right? All those Middle Eastern countries. Why not? That's going to really hinder, or this is going to hinder the long-term sustainability of developing, youth consistently in Jamaica. Of course, this is just in the field events, but why can't this happen in the sprints? If we see sprinters after the Jamaican trials not, go and, take the deal from Turkey, that's also going to be another blow. And even more so than just the, of course, overall development about Jamaican track and field, but specifically in the field events. Look at what kind of message this sends, where we just won 6 medals at the Olympic Games. 4 of them, when I say we, I'm talking about Jamaica, 4 of those 6 were in the field events. And out of all those 4, only one athlete, Shaniqua Ricketts, is not leaving. Right? That is not a good look. That is really not a good look. So what does that mean for a young field eventer who's trying to make it in Jamaican track and field? It's a big, big loss for Jamaican track and field. So what does JAAA need to do? In my opinion, I think they truly need to invest in their existing athletes. You need to celebrate your athletes and show that you do appreciate them, right? Invest in their development, invest in their sustainability, invest in their coaching, in their recovery, in all those different aspects that you as JAAA are necessary to make sure that they're able to be the best athletes they can be. Because clearly they're not able to actually do that. That is one thing that they're truly, truly lacking, especially specifically on the field event side. They need to work on that talent development, develop more talent in the field events, make sure that you're cultivating and supporting them all throughout their entire journey, not just when they, become a pro, or not just when they're a really young athlete, like throughout their entire journey. Yes, it costs money, but look at the end result. If you don't actually, support them, you lose, more than half of your medalists from the Olympic Games last year. That's what actually happens. And then also, I think being transparent about the struggles. No one is absolutely perfect. When I say no one, I mean like no federation is perfect, right? So JAAA, in my opinion, should be as transparent as possible. I don't know what that can look like, but talk about, some of the things that you might be struggling with and what you're actually doing to fix some of these issues. That's what y'all really need to do. But this is just some initial thoughts coming off of, this was a crazy, crazy day. Twitter kind of went wild. I ain't gonna lie. Twitter went wild. But let me know what you think about these transfers for Jamaica. Wow, it's crazy. It's crazy. But let me know what you think. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Always appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching.